flared up again on Sunday.
Mm.
With Digi 3.3 second deduction takes him off the podium. We're all mad about tire pressures. But is there a part of you that thinks, well, it's the same rules for everyone, so why are we having an issue with it? Like, why aren't they just starting with higher tire pressures? Nobody else got pinned for it in that race. So, is it one of those things where we're all sitting there going, and you get to hear a lot of this when you looking on like Twitter and stuff, and whatever, everyone's angry about it. But it's the rules, right? So it's the same as like any other rule. Like, you can't track limits and that or whatever. You got to stay in the track. You got to stay in a certain range. I know if the temperatures change or you're behind another bike when you didn't think you were gonna be, why aren't they just given the tire pressures so that they know in every situation they're not going to drop below the minimum? So I don't know how you feel about it. I think it's silly, but I also think just play within the rules of the game.
Well, the thing with I get it if it's an extreme, like um under pressure, then that's bad. But I think Digi's was like phone. Let me try find out on Twitter because I'm sure his crew chief put on how low they actually were
It was
under.
very minimal. I think it was
Um,
very
I
close to
seem to
not
remember,
being under.
yeah, that he said it was like it'll be near the top. Give me one. There it is. Yeah. Sorry to my boy. Yesterday we were correct. When 0.2 bar higher for just 2 laps of the race, they were 0.01 out of the front tire too low. So it's like, you know, for 2 laps, 0.01. Is that worth the penalty and him losing the podium after the podium celebration, after being given the trophy, after being in Parc Ferme? Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit like
No, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But
he's gone through all of that. He celebrated his what was I second, third podium in MotoGP, and then he's been like, "Oh yeah, by the way, mate, you were 0.01. You know, your tire pressure was minuscule under the limit. We're gonna have to take that trophy away from you now." Like, it's
yeah,
gonna Brad.
uh, yeah. I look. I don't like this rule at all. I'm
No,
not.
I
I'm not
think
into it.
it's time.
Right. I think it's silly. I get that they have their own reasons for it. Michelin and that, because it's like a safety thing or whatever. Whatever it is, it's technical, right? But they feel like they have to do this, and the people who run MotoGP agrees, right? So that's why we have this rule in place. So, and I get that, like, oh, it's not by much, but then where do you? It's like, oh, well, if the limit's
Whereas,
this, if the limit's 1 and you go to point 0.9, not 0.99, it's like, well, that's only just under, so we're not going to penalize it. But then where do you start penalizing? So then you could just be just 1 under that. And it's like, well, oh,
yeah,
it's so close. So you have to put a limit somewhere, and if you go under that, it has to be the penalty, right? Now, my question is, why are they running it so close? Like, why are they,
yeah,
you know, if they're thinking to themselves, if we start at this pressure with the way the temperatures are now, and this happens, okay, worst case scenario, we get stuck tucked under a group and the tire pressures are going to drop. I don't know exactly how it works, but whatever it is, whatever situation it is, then why are they not pressuring the tire for worst case scenario then? Because they are taking a risk then. So then, that's where I lose sympathy, because it's like, well, you could have just safely. I know that you're going to go slower, and your rider's not going to be as comfortable, because your ideal setup is at this level. But if you set it up at that level, you could drop to this level, which means you're going to be under for 2 laps of the race. So, and next year it's going to be even harsher with the punishments. It's going to be disqualifications. Are they going to be running this risk? You know?
I just think, especially for that final round as well, if if obviously it didn't happen, if Jorge Martin had beaten Pecco by enough and had won the race, and it was a very close field, and then had been given the penalty after, and lost the championship after all the celebrations and everything. What a joke our sport would have become if it had been decided like that in a steward's
Yeah,
room. Like, how long was it after Fabio got given ours? Like 2 hours later or something, he got given it.
yeah,
It's like, could you imagine if the championship was decided like that? Like, what a way for fans to just go, I'm not going to watch this anymore if this is how races are going to be.
yeah. And that
Championship,
they took that risk, and luckily it didn't come down to that.
yeah, it's just
But
because they were
yeah,
both on
and look,
on
I 100%
penalty as
agree.
well.
I think it's nonsense. I think it's complete nonsense, this thing. But when a rule is in place, why are you like flirting with the? It's the same
Yeah,
thing as if it happens on track limits. If you could win the title and he's winning the race, comes around the last corner, overtakes someone. Bagnaia is in sixth, right? So if he wins it, he wins the title. Comes out onto the edge of the ripple strip and steps over it, demote one position, lose the championship. You know, I know that that would be a lot quicker. Like you wouldn't be celebrating and all that, but it is kind of the same thing if you drop below the thing. So yeah, I mean, I was, it is stupid, but, and it could have been an absolute fucking disaster, like you mentioned. But for me, it's, and I hate, don't get me wrong, I hate track limits as well. It's my biggest gripe in all of MotoGP, motorsport, track limits. Just put fucking grass there, man. Um,
or
but
gravel like at Valencia. They've got so much gravel around the circuit.
just don't have concrete runoff sections that are painted green that you're not allowed to touch. Then why is it there? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, um, but yeah, if you step out of there, if that is the rule and you break the rule, you get the punishment for it. It is silly how it, you know, it takes so long and all that stuff. But sorry, I've said silly, and Siri's trying to Siri shut the hell up. Sorry, I'm on a Mac and Siri has just kicked in. Sorry, everyone. Um, but yeah, tire pressures. How does this end, this tire pressure thing? Right, because do we have to leave because Michelin's contracted now to like the end of 2026, I think. So are they gonna like? Are they? Do you know anything about? Are they trying to sort this out, or do we just until their contract's up? Is this what it's going to be like, or are they trying to be like, look, for now we need to do the tire pressure thing until we can figure out what to do with these tires, and we can get the
Well,
right tires that aren't dangerous.
I think they've been testing new tires today actually for next season, but they it was hard to hear because obviously it was a Crayfire interview in pit lane, and I was sat at a train station listening to it as well. So I was kind of
Mm.
had two
The
two.
sound was awful on that. I caught the end of it when it was live on
Yeah,
YouTube, and the sound was, I don't know what they were doing with the microphones, but it sounded
I
horrible.
can't remember what they said, but they brought in a new tire for 2024. So whether that's going to fix it, I don't think so. But then they're bringing in a new tire for 2025. So I'm assuming 2025 is going to be the time when they say that all our issues are fixed. We brought in this new carcass, and that's what they were talking about. Yeah, the new carcass is going to be made differently. So I think that might be when we're going to see the issues end. But it's just a joke. I honestly think this sport's becoming more political than it is actually on the track. Like,
Yeah,
you think that all the decisions in the past that have been made as well about just it's been like a bit close, and they're like, no, yeah, it's you know, it's just obviously, and then you have other riders taking out other people, and they're like, nah, that's fine. You know, if your
yeah.
tire
That
pressure's a
is
little bit too under,
that's a bit annoys me actually. Like as a it's one of those things that in all sport, but like even as like a football fan as well, I always get frustrated with things that are like bad tackles or like in this case like shunting someone off the road, stuff that can actually result in hurting someone else, and they'll be like, eh, or but then like with the football examples, like you could just be like, fuck you, ref, which hurts nobody except the ref's ego, and they'll be like red card, like the priorities aren't straight there. So similar like with this, where you've got rules like this that are like severely could be punishing people's races and potentially title ambitions. Um, and then stuff that is actually physically a problem on track, like hitting a guy off his bike, they're doing nothing. It's saying that I do like a bit of
Yeah.
contact on the track. I do like the boys to fight hard, but obviously nothing dangerous, you know. Like if you're just hitting a guy into the gravel, probably a bit much. If you're just sort of getting your elbows out a little bit, I like to see that sort of stuff. Which is weird because we had that period there where just sitting a guy up apparently was a long lap penalty.
Yeah. And then that's just disappeared by the end of the
Yeah, that
season.
doesn't exist anymore. I don't know when
Consistency
they
is
just decided not to do that anymore.
I don't think it was announced either. They were just like I think originally it was if you pretty much sit someone up, you drop a couple positions. If you knock someone off, you get to do a long lap penalty. Whereas I'm gonna use it again and it's gonna it's gonna sound bad, but again, I think it's the most recent example. Marquez hitting off Bezzecchi and
Yeah.
Martin taking out Marquez. Neither of those got announced as penalties because they can be carried over to next year as well because we've had penalties like that carried on to a new year. So
Yeah.
I think
And
Vietti had to
then
do one before in Moto2 that was carried over. So they can do it, but
yeah. And then like you said, you see things like it was like Pecco and Miller, wasn't it? I can't remember if that was
yeah,
that this
correct.
season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Correct was. And
Yeah,
like oh he did not even touch him. Like he just got up the inside of him and sat him up. I'm like, good move.
yeah,
Good
great move.
move. You know. And they were like drop position.
Yeah.
And then,
I
like you
think
said, just at the weekends, Marquez he literally just rides into the side of Bezzecchi there, just
yeah.
rides into the side of him and shits him off into the gravel. That's it. They're like, good move, last race with Honda. May as well get your elbows out, lad. Go for it. You know.
And then Martin wipes them out a little later on and they're like, "Eh,
And but then again, when you look back at because that's a guy making a mistake and taking someone out, so they're probably like, oh, we're not going to punish him for that because I don't know, he didn't mean it or whatever. I don't know. But then Fabio at Assen drops the front as he's overtaking Aleix Spargaro
yeah."
and gets penalised for that.
Yeah, there's a whole, like, 2-hour debate on stewards. And it's the fact that half of our ex-riders themselves as well,
I
and they
know
can't
you just
figure this out.
because
Is it
if
still
you
Freddie
got,
Spencer?
I think it is, and if you got these sort of decisions from people who weren't ex riders and ex motor Grand Prix riders, you'd be like, go get a Grand Prix rider because they know what they're talking about. Well, obviously, it doesn't work that way.
No, because
Like, you
Freddie
just need
Spencer
someone with a bit
crashed
of common
twice.
sense and
Yeah.
consistency.
Oh, yeah, it's a whole issue. But stewards, I
It's
think,
enough
have been an
to
issue.
boil the blood.